LP, Laguna Niguel, Laguna Beach. KXFM on 104.7, kxfmradio.org.
Hey everybody, you are listening to Wake Up Laguna right here on KXFM in beautiful Laguna Beach. And I am about to bring on, technology is a wonderful thing, I'm about to bring on a very, very special guest. I'm super excited to have Marcie here with us. And I think I'm going to let her kind of introduce herself and give you a little bit of her story before we kind of dive into this amazing, I don't even know how to describe it. I'm going to say music. I'm going to say music because it is. But it's much, much more than that. So, Marcie, welcome.
Hey, Rick. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. Last time I talked to Marcie, you guys can't see her, obviously, since this is radio. But last time I talked to Marcie, she was in her beautiful backyard. Now she's inside. So I think maybe she wants to control her environment a little bit more than maybe having gardeners outside blowing or whatever, right?
Yeah, actually, unfortunately, when I'm at the bar out there, I have had like the bug guy come, the lawn guys show up, and airplanes were right under the flight path here. So yeah, I kind of wanted to make sure.
I do remember.
Yeah, it's actually raining today too, which just was the extra sign to set up inside, which is a rare thing for me.
Absolutely. No, that's great. I'm happy you're here. Marcie, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about your path and kind of what brought you, what's interesting, and I don't think you probably were listening to the first part of my show, but I was really talking about soul contracts, right? And the contract that we all have, the agreement that we make with our soul, with it's put together, by our angelic guides, put together by Source, but we all have this soul contract. And part of the soul contract are what I was describing as destiny points, right? And the destiny points that are there. And I know that what you're going to be sharing with us, there were certain destiny points in that as part of your journey, as part of your contract, your agreement, that kind of led you to where you're at today. So why don't you kind of jump in and tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, as I've gone through this recent discovery that we're going to kind of get into, I've been able to look back on my entire life and see all the points where there were other people that were helpers along the way. And maybe there were people that could have stuck in longer, but it was a time that we had to part ways because I was going to continue to follow my calling and stay, the course while maybe they just served a short part in it. But I felt like I had an idealistic childhood. Both my parents were very creative. They encouraged creativity. Music was something both my parents would sit and play guitar together. They tried to push me into music and I resisted. I hated learning the way, like reading sheet music or the way that someone was trying to teach me. So I did play around on my grandmother's had a Mellotron, it's an older version synthesizer for people who don't know. And I would play around with that and I would play around with a little drum pad, but I never did anything that was like, I'm going to learn this song and do it the way that other people are supposed to. So that being said, my parents ended up divorcing when I was in middle school and it felt like my world kind of fell apart and I was thrust into kind of being more of a caregiver for my siblings while my mom threw her career together. And I know she played a big part in this because she actually felt called to become a children's entertainer at that point. She became the first local celebrity in Raleigh, North Carolina, Cotton the Clown. She did all kinds of amazing, music programs and like coffee shops. And it really, really showed me how much of a gift she had with children. But while she was focused on her purpose, I had to take a back seat, and I had been kind of an only child till 7. So I suddenly have 2 younger siblings, and I'm like cooking, cleaning, trying to go to school and worried about money all the time. And so I became very streamlined on, I'm not going to do these things. I'm not going to get divorced. I'm not going to, let my family go through what I've gone through. So I went to school, never made less than a B, went to design school, and then went into corporate America, 20 years, 18 years at IBM, and then 2 years at Amazon Web Services. I kind of just imagined when I was at IBM that I was going to retire from IBM. I was very much living the mainstream dream, and I was building my life and manifesting that within the rules and the construction that we have. However, when some things started to shift in my life around COVID time, honestly, like I just started to see things from a different perspective, and it was so nice to just be still. And my husband and I actually got COVID, spent 14 days quarantined in a bedroom. And honestly, that was probably one of the best times we had together. Like just having everything else out of the way allows you to actually just connect with a person and disconnect from all the other mess. And so I just really, I knew I didn't want to go back into an office. I never had to work full time in an office, but I started seeing so many more opportunities opening up from this, where I was getting hit up by like 40 recruiters a day, and I ended up narrowing it down to both offers from Google and Amazon Web Services. And again, at this point, I'm leaving my family at IBM. I loved everyone there. It was an amazing journey, but it just felt like it was time for me to make a change. And as scary as it was, I went ahead and made the decision. And I started off my very first day finding out that the reason I chose Amazon Web Services, the guy I was supposed to work with, he had quit the week before. And now I'm just tossed into this crazy like silence. No, everyone's busy. No one can help me. And I felt like I'd made a huge decision that I was going to regret. And I actually now don't regret it, but it was probably the hardest journey of my life. And when people told me that Amazon was a hard place to work, I'm like, I'm a good worker. I can get my job done in half the day. They were talking about psychologically. There's very much like, it is very rule following, and they've got these great leadership principles, but they haven't evolved from what actually got them out there. So I struggled through that whole process. But I've learned so much, and going through everything in that was part of my journey as well. So meanwhile, I was at the end of some things with my husband and I trying to decide on, where our marriage was going. And this house that I've walked past for many years, around the corner, it's an older house. It's a very unique house, but it looks just like something I drew as a kid. And I was like, that's my dream house. I'd tell everybody that. Well, he finds out that it's on the market, and it was kind of our last, like, maybe if we move in this house, everything can be okay, but it's kind of the make it or break it thing. And unfortunately, it was the thing that broke the marriage down. Not the house itself, but just the realization that this place wasn't going to change the dynamics. So that being said, I very quickly met a man when I was out for dinner and drinks with a friend. I stopped by another place because it's the first time I didn't have the kids. And it was pretty dead, but I go in and instantly, like, I lock eyes with this guy, and I felt like it was somebody I hadn't seen in 20 years. It was somebody I already felt like I knew. And so I nervously went and sat down at the bar, but I sat like one seat over from him, and he looked right at me and said, "You can move over if you want." And I don't even know where the night went, but we were holding hands within 5 minutes. And this was the weirdest thing ever to me, because I wasn't out hunting for a relationship. I definitely thought I was not going to bring someone back to my house, like everything against this from, my rules. But we were just instantly together, and we had this crazy psychic connection. We both knew we had a purpose, and there were just weird things that along the way in our relationship, I recorded and took more video than I ever have. I made him a custom song because I kept hearing I was going to make him music. We bonded over music. And so this music topic just kept coming up. But I paid somebody else to make a song because, again, I don't have experience making it. And it was a beautiful song. He loved it. But, one of the things that had happened with my dad passing about 11 years ago is that I would get lyrics that would come into my head just instantly right after he left. And it's the first time I was starting to trust kind of this mediumship type connection. And it wasn't very like loud. It was just like little subtle things here or there. And I could just feel his energy. So John and I had talked about that. And about a week or two into dating him, we both started getting this message that like something was going to happen to him. So I started looking into all kinds of health problems because we're like, we can stop this, right? So I helped him get some dental work done, and He had sleep apnea, but I found mouth guards that actually helped him completely stop snoring. I've talked to his family and they were like, God, you could hear him across the room. Like it was so bad with the snoring. So I'm thinking, these are the problems. We're solving them. It's okay. However, about 7 months in, just before 7 months in, my friends invited us down to go boating, and they always get this rental boat, a boat rental outside of Wilmington, North Carolina, and go out to this private island. Just, it's beautiful because it's like unobstructed. You could just go out there and there's a sound side where everyone parks their boats. And then on the other side, you can go enjoy the waves and the beach. So this sounded like the greatest idea because it's Father's Day weekend and my dad had been a boat captain and everything starts to feel like, again, like this is just great synergy and I'm going for it. And so suddenly the week before, there was a lot of little weird things that happened right before John ended up passing, but we got really sick. And again, I was reminded of that COVID time with Channing, my ex-husband, and he and I were just in bed for a week solid. And it was just the most like beautiful time, even though we felt horrible, that we got that time right before he had to go. So we go to the beach this day. It's a beautiful day. My youngest daughter didn't come with us. She stayed back, staying at her father's house and with a friend for her birthday. But my oldest daughter and his son, we drove down there. We got out. The weather was absolutely perfect. And we got over and docked on the boat. And we were kind of going back and forth from each side. And then my friend Kim's son wasn't feeling well. So I said I'd stay on the boat because I thought John was coming back to the boat. And I get a text from him that just says, I love you. And I'm like, where is he? And I'm like, where are you? Yo. And I send a picture, like, I can't find you. So eventually when I'm not getting any responses, I'm like, let's go around the side. I want to go see what's going on. So I walk around there and it's a bit of a blur, but my daughter came running to me saying something happened to John. And I see people doing chest compressions on him on the ground and everything else around it was a blur. I remember grabbing his arm and just screaming out. And then next thing I know, I'm on an ambulance and riding with his son to be treated for near drowning himself. And so we went through all this crazy thing. I'm waiting in a dripping wet bathing suit and I could barely think straight and had to wait for family and everyone to come from Raleigh, North Carolina, which is a couple hours away. So all this being said, there was a bracelet that John had shown me the first week that he always wore. It had Roman numerals on it. And he asked if I knew what it was. And I was like, no. And I'm like, you going to tell me? And he's like, yeah, it's my son's birthday and his name is underneath it. So he never took this off. I never saw him ever take it off in the shower, swimming, any of that. I don't remember him not having it on in Wilmington. I don't know how this all worked out, but when I got home that night, it was on the pillow on my bed.
Wow.
And that was like this point of, oh, wow, like this is our purpose. It wasn't for us like just in person. It was for us to get to know each other and then continue that on. So I fully embraced my grief on a level that I just basically didn't get out of bed for a month. I let people come over and do whatever they wanted to do when I'm usually the type that's like controlling things. I did try to go back to work too early. My boss, thankfully, knew that it wasn't the time and told me to go ahead and take a leave of absence. Also, he probably knew that when I was going to return, they were going to basically tell me I have to move to Seattle or New York or lose my job because this is the new return to office policy. So I'm so thankful I took that time. And if anyone is ever going through a grief situation, please take the time. Like I know that so many of us say, oh, we got 3 days off of work. We'll take a couple more unpaid. It is worth it for your own mental health. And because I did that, because I lived in my grief, I was able to start hearing and opening up this portal to John, communicating with me. And he eased me in with all kinds of things where he had left a camera in the house that was supposed to be hung back up, security camera. I suddenly am getting orbs all over. Then I'm seeing them in my backyard with my naked eye. And it was just like the wildest thing, but I kept hearing we were going to be able to communicate and audibly. He kept saying audibly. And so I start looking into things and stuff such, again, synchronicities would just start popping up. Someone started talking about an EVP device, a spirit box. So I'm just looking into this, but I was listening. I'm like, it sounds like it's like something for ghost hunters. People are going out there and taking them to scary places and looking for dark things. So this scared me. And I'm like, I don't know about this, but I did try it. And interestingly enough, I was guided to clean this audio up to a level from a spirit box that no one has ever done before. And John was clearly in there and he was articulating that we were going to do what we promised his son. We're building the bridge, that this is going to help the next generation of kids be more understood. He very clearly was talking with another woman, interviewing him, asking him questions on the other side. This wasn't just like one word that I'm guessing at. And so I, of course, think this is awesome, but he kept saying it's to be something else. So I was sitting there testing everything like hair dryers, water. And I'll tell you, like the leaf blowers, he'll come through on that. I can clean up a leaf blower and a washing machine. I mean, anything at all. The thing is, spirit is always around us. And what I've learned how to do is a process for amplifying them. So I'm removing, it's like the way that we remove background noise, possibly on Google Meet or something. You don't want to have the dogs barking, the kids crying. It's like the reverse of that. We're moving all this foreground to let them raise up. And so I started trying to experiment with anything and everything. And I was getting different levels. But then one day he told me, no, Marcie, you're going to make music. Because I was playing with songs too, like just random songs on the radio and, whatever. But he's like, no, you're going to make music. And one day he just had me open GarageBand on my computer, which I've had a Mac forever. I've jumped in that program like once for my daughter many years ago and never touched it again. And next thing you know, within 40 minutes, I'm just being guided to pick sounds and I've made a song. And then I did that filtering process on that song and he came back and it was like he was fitting in more with the actual song. So you could tell like he structurally was like preparing that whatever I'm putting together, he could almost like talk in a rhythm with it.
Right.
Still wasn't ideal, but now I'm up to 200 tracks that I've made. I've posted over 150 of them, released 4 albums. Love Evolved Music is the name of my business. And that's after a rebrand. I've been guided to do so many things in this that I started a company. Then I was told, no, take all that website stuff down, do this, focus on the music. So I'm just listening. And sometimes it is very frustrating, but sometimes we have to make those mistakes to find where we're supposed to be. And now I just passionately make music every single day. I've got him at the point where he is rapping in my music. He's talking, he's singing, and he has pushed me to sing and rap. And I never thought I would ever do this. So that's I know a lot to tell you, but that's basically the story.
Yeah. And so let's unpack a little bit here, Marcie. First off, it sounds like John is having an amazing time in the afterlife and really enjoying his connection with you and really kind of continuing your journey together. It's just, you're just physically not together, but certainly spiritually you feel as close to him as you ever have, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, honestly, the interesting part is he continues to help me because he brought another wonderful man into my life, Brian. And again, I've talked to all my friends who had to go through online dating services for years, and they're telling me about like 20 guys that were horrible and, they can't find anybody. And here I'm like just stumbling upon these gems. So Brian came into my life. He has a lot of weird synchronicities with John. I kind of call them fraternal twins. Like John was a little bit more like me, very kind of high energy, but like very sweet, loving guy. And Brian is a more grounded like force that I need desperately to be able to go through this.
Right.
If it were John and me here trying to do this with somebody, we'd be all over the place. But Brian is what brings me back down so I can actually bring what I'm learning and apply it to the 3D realm that we're in.
Yeah.
So he came to fix some electrical problems and lots of little things that just happened that actually evolved into a relationship. And what has been weird is sometimes it is strange that I just sometimes think of John as the person I'm talking to through this, and I almost forget the physical John that I was with because it's like evolved into this whole different relationship.
Sure.
Where, I mean, of course, I miss him. I miss not being able to physically give him a hug and see his smile, but it's a whole different level. And so one of the things, among many things that this is kind of leading to, one of the things is that when people cross over, they are not wanting you to hold on to them. There's a lot of people who have this thing that, I can't move on. I feel guilty. I've seen people posting like, I just got engaged. Is my ex-partner, is he upset about it? And everything that I've gotten is that initially when they go over there, they get transitional emotions because you're kind of going through a life review, but then all the lower vibration emotions leave. It doesn't mean that they're emotionless, but the lower vibration things like jealousy go away and they want you to be happy. If you are still here and they are there, it is your purpose. It is your destiny, as you mentioned earlier. Yeah. And so I'm trying to help people. And I have actually made a few people custom songs that have helped connect them to their loved ones where they weren't actually intuitively hearing from them. And that song just opened up the connection and they're able to now trust their intuition.
Okay, so let's go there. And I think the best way to go there is I've got some of your tracks right here that I can play. And I'm thinking that let's play a bit of it. Allow the listeners to be able to hear it,
I would highly recommend
Yeah.
if you are listening and you have either like car stereo or headphones, this is so much better. The whole experience is completely different when you can kind of block out other noise. So cell phones are not the best way. Not that you won't be able to hear it, but to experience the frequencies and what they're able to do.
Right.
And I would recommend you. There's two songs that I have off the top of my head, but Letting Go is one that if you can search in the SoundCloud, I can send you the link. The very beginning, you'll start to hear John literally is the one who's like rapping. And at one point he's like, "Where's John? Chilling." I mean, it is like not at all what I would have ever thought about communicating with someone after they passed. But
Sure.
if you see that one,
I'm on your site, and
Okay.
you've got two tracks on there. You have, the first track you have is the Forever Entwined, and then you've got the New Beginnings track.
So so those are two that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Those are two that I made for people. So
Right.
one of them, there's two different types. And so we'll kind of talk about that. And it doesn't mean that the sound of the song is going to be different. It's going to be naturally customized and tuned to the person. However, one of these was to help connect somebody with their loved one who passed away. And the other was just a higher self connection to help enhance and embrace your intuition.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah.
And I think that's important because these tracks serve different purposes.
Mm-hmm.
The first, as you said, really you create a custom track, a custom song for someone that allows them to connect with people that have passed in their life, right?
Yes.
Right. And the other, I shouldn't say version, but the other type is this activation song.
Yes.
Right? That I think for a lot of people who say, well, I'm not really interested in connecting with anybody on the other side right now, but thank you, but would love to be able to help connect with their higher self, their spirit guides, I mean, all of that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, definitely. And the thing that I've been told, like what John has explained about this, is I had to go through this, like a lot of trauma, a lot of loss. Even since my brother has passed away, family is distanced. I've had to cut out friends that realized they were not really friends or they had their time and place. But I had to go through an intense amount of trauma in order to get to where I am. And this music kind of just takes you there.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to lose somebody to wake up and see this world for what it is. And so it's
Right.
kind of just a nice shortcut. And it's it's like most people describe it as somehow it feels familiar when they listen to it. So,
Well, let's do just that.
awesome.
Let's listen to a little bit of this track, then I'll pause it, and I want to come back in. One of the things that you do, which I find fascinating on the site, is kind of a energy analysis that you do, right?
Yes.
And so we can unpack that a little bit and look at and talk about, how is this made? Not just how it's made, but the different frequencies that you're using, what the energy signatures are, all of that. So we'll come back to that. So let's just have everybody listen to this for a minute. And Marcie has a good point. If you're at home and you could put on headphones to listen to this, absolutely do it. If you're in your car and you're playing this on Bluetooth, well, then you'll be with it. And certainly I'm recording this like I do all my shows. I'm recording this. You can always go back and listen to this. Plus, I'm going to have links to all of Marcie's sites and her songs, so you can go back after the fact and go a little bit deeper and connect with Marcie as well if you are so moved to do so. But let's go ahead and play this, Marcie, and let this
Rick.
sink in a bit.
Кузины старались исходить из разошелся form bold escape just wanted out to win them in my watches the coach kind of like is that talks not to call this touch side of my period so that's good through so that's
I don't hear anything.
the project project that is charge electric to launch the comics that's we don't take the advantage of that to concentrate to pass these on this so I still live in every school have the color as well the house just the fun was never be starting with a sneak and more of the comments so it's fabulous who's a big of the house
I have so many, I don't know, just emotional feelings as that track was playing. And what Marcie was messaging me as that track was playing was that John was coming through to her, and she wasn't hearing the track like we all were. You were just hearing static, right?
It was static, and then him trying to go, it was like, just like jutting in. Yeah.
Wow. Does that happen to you often?
So that's how this first actually happened. Well, I'll say, I'm going to go back to childhood when I told you I used to play around on things and experiment.
Right.
My grandmother had a shortwave radio too, and I would turn the knob back and forth, and I thought people were talking to me, but it was like my imagination, right? So now the first time this ever happened, I was just on a Zoom call, like much like a Google Meet or something, and I had some background removal on, and when music came through, it wasn't music, it was John's voice. That's where this kind of first started, when I was trying to experiment and figure things out. When I stopped trying to experiment and figure it out, he was just like, here I am. So that's what actually created like the thought for the background removal process that I've come up with.
Got it. So let's talk about what we just heard. And I distinctly heard voices, obviously. It sounded to me, the voices that I heard, and this is just me, for me, they had a British accent. It was a man.
I can't wait to share this with you.
It's a man with a British accent. So
it is John's energy that is the one that's working through all this. But what he says is we're actually working towards more of a universal language. So if you think about, if you think about like how music itself is a universal language, now we're using the different styles of instruments. So as I'm building this, I'm using a program that has loops that have been created by other people. And so different energy is being put in. So I'm not just making up my own song. I'm actually actively using loops from a shared program. And so some of them might have a different kind of feeling or vibe behind them. And what I've noticed is he comes back, and if I filter this down, you don't hear the music, just him. His accent will change. It has sounded like he's speaking Chinese and Arabic and all kinds of stuff. But like it'll be every other like third or fourth word is English. So it's almost like a blend of all these languages and getting used to hearing them all as one and using your intuition to fill in the gaps on what is being said. And so everyone gets their own messages the way they need to. I literally had someone reach out to me and was like, I can't believe you speak Polish. And I was like, I don't. And they're like, no, that's the track has words in it. And I was like, okay, this is amazing.
I love that.
I'm still learning every day. I get new downloads and understanding about this each day, even just talking to you on how I can explain this, because there's nothing like this. So, I'm having to figure it out myself and be the expert on something that doesn't exist yet.
No. And that's what I find so absolutely fascinating about it is there's nothing like this. I have not come across anything even close to what you're doing here. But let's break this down a little bit, Marcie, for the listeners. So there is an energy analysis that you do, right?
Yes.
As part of this. So let's talk about the dominant frequencies here that were part of this.
So when I'm actually forming the music, I am not doing anything to intentionally tune anything into a certain frequency. I know that there are some artists right now, which I think it's cool that they're pushing things into this like healing beats type of thing, or like healing house. And so there's a trend kind of going that way for more of this upbeat music that has the like healing frequencies in it. But along with everything else, just one day I was wondering how I could actually see what the frequencies are. And so I started doing a couple different things with a frequency analysis tool. And then I actually started using AI to help me break down and uncover what the dominant frequencies are, and then provide extra information on the kind of general tone and vibe of each song. So if you go on SoundCloud and look at my songs there, in the description or more info, you can see a breakdown of whatever those dominant frequencies are, what they actually can do to help you potentially. And you can make a choice on a song based on, hey, this one here is about like connecting to my higher self more. It's like a crown chakra thing, versus this one is just something to help me relax. So I kind of call them like spiritual cocktails. So this frequency analysis, like,
I love that.
It's either that or it's like, we say all these gifts are medicine, but I say this is more like we're at the bar with John serving up a spiritual cocktail. And so you can go find exactly what you're needing. If you're stressed out and having anxiety, there's ones to calm your anxiety. And if you are just wanting to get things done around the house, you need to clean. There's others you can blare it and you get it done in like half the time. So it's really amazing how it works with your whole like energy and your system.
Yeah. And I love that idea of spiritual cocktail, because the idea that just popped into my head was happy hour, spiritual happy hour. And yeah, wow, that would be a whole new radio show. But anyway,
So for me, the thing is, I was corporate. I was a Christian. I was very like, streamlined in what I was doing, and I was living the life the way that the book tells us it's supposed to be lived. And I was very closed off to spiritual people when I was younger, because it felt like they were either just too out there or they were too perfect. This whole kind of, vegan, I don't drink, I don't do anything wrong type of thing. And I'm like, I kind of want to live life. And I've learned that it's about moderation. And I like literally have had conversations with John specifically about like drink, not drunk. It's like you can do these things. It's when they start to take over your life and you need them, that it becomes an addiction. But everything that is here is here for us to use and find the way to regulate. And so there's been a whole trend with this kind of like bar theme and the spiritual cocktail theme. I always usually work out at the bar, which actually was his idea the first night he came over here. He wanted to build this bar, and we just got it in right before he passed. So there's like a continuous theme exactly around this, like bringing this to the mainstream, letting people know you don't have to become a vegan to have your connection. You don't have to completely stop drinking or do everything the perfect way. There is no perfect. And so it's more of like an invitation, even with this style of music. I could never listen to spa music. I could never do yoga and just relax, but I need this extra bump in my like step and the upbeat parts. And that's what actually helps me relax. So if you're somebody that can't get down with the typical spiritual practices that people encourage about going to meditate, put these headphones on and just listen to the talking, and you already are taken to a meditation state.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's the cool part about it. I just popped over to your SoundCloud channel just because there's a lot more to see here and listen to here is a library. How many do you have here in SoundCloud?
On SoundCloud, there's at least 150 some tracks, maybe like closer to 160 now. For a long time, I was posting every single day, making at least one track a day. I have another probably 50 of them that are unfinished or on my computer that just didn't feel like they were meant to be posted. And then I have specifically 4 albums that I was instructed to make. And those are on all streaming platforms like Apple or Spotify.
Wow.
But yeah, I took a break about 10 days ago. And today was the first day that I got back onto making the songs after my live demo on Friday, which was like the very first time I've done a collective energy piece. And it was interesting just taking the break sometimes, even though it is good to be consistent. I'm encouraged to rest, and I was not listening. And so I'm encouraging everyone else, when you're doing work, take those breaks. It is so essential.
Yeah.
And it just kind of gave me a new restored energy today when I worked on a track. So
that's cool. That's very cool. So people could come to you, and you will build a custom track for them based on what?
So basically, I have a couple different things that you can book on my site, but there's a free discovery call, and that is required. So you can, if you go book me and you've bypassed that, I'm going to point you back to the free discovery call needing to be done first. That is the chance for me to know if we're an energetic fit, and know if, like, especially if it's a more of a mediumship thing, if just you, if I feel like you're not really ready for this, then I'm going to give you some other exercises or pointers, and at least it's beneficial and you can come back around.
Right.
If it's a connection piece, I'll know right away if John is working with this person. He says we're the gatekeepers. So I'm bringing your energy in, and instantly he'll be there with the other energy. And I know instantly, yes, this is a fit. We can do this.
Yeah.
And so I'll let them know. They'll be reassured because they'll get messages just mediumship style that they absolutely know is their partner. And then at that point, I'm moving towards possibly doing this more live for the people, but right now it's better for me to then take that energy. And so I've already built it up. I've seen the connection between the two, and I then go immediately and work on this track. And it's pulling that energy from the connection conversation we had.
That's very cool. And is it my understanding that there might be something in the works for me?
Yeah, maybe so.
Maybe so. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool. One of the things that I talked about when I was in my first hour, when I was talking about the destiny points is part of our soul contract and part of our journey, is we come across people in that journey, and we talked about it in reference to you when you came across John and your current beau. It's all part of that. But I also feel very strongly, and I feel this way about you and I, that we come across people in our journey that are meant to be, at least in that moment, for however long, that are kind of meant to be in your life. And it might be professional, it might be personal, it could be, it could be a little of both. So, I mean, that's kind of how I felt you and I met. And it was just, to me, it was an instant connection. And there was this instant, I need to talk more to you. I need to,
Absolutely.
Right, in our first conversation, in the first call that we did, and the first Zoom call that we did was just that. But I really felt that way and felt that this is so special, and this is so, I think for a lot of people, it's going to be so healing and so connective to spirit, to it really is just, it's kind of what they need to hear in that moment. Mm-hmm. And do you think that in creating these tracks that I can listen to, let's just say a track for myself, I can listen to that track today and tomorrow I'll listen to it and I'll hear something entirely different?
Yes, actually, you've absolutely got that right. And what I actually recommend to people when you have your custom track is to get in a place where you're comfortable, relaxed, first time, headphones on, but listen to that same track on repeat at least 4 times. Oh. And it each time you listen, you're going to hear different parts. If you kind of go in and you might follow like his talking or listen to more of like the drum line, like if you focus on different parts of the instruments that are in there, you'll hear different messages because it's a blend of the frequencies of what I've pulled out and the actual music that's in there.
Right.
But yes, and I've, again, you could do this like daily. The more you actually use it and do it regularly, once you have your custom song, it's like it activates and it opens up more and more, and it kind of creates a safe place for you. I don't know how to explain that really, but people have just said it's this familiar, like, if they're freaking out, they can go put their headphones on, listen to this, and it just kind of calms them down. And, it feels like a familiar, I guess I describe it like when you're in like a crowded bar. So if we stick to this whole bar theme, right? It's like you're at a show, a band's playing or something, there's people talking all around you, and you're kind of listening in on one of these conversations with all this loud noise around you. And it starts to make you feel like you've physically been transported into this, what I call like almost like an echo chamber or a physical space with them. That's just like a mental image that you can get. Is there an average length of the tracks that you do? When I build a song, I do make sure they're all over 2 minutes. Like it's going to be like at least enough to get you going, but I don't have a beginning and end. I don't have a stopping point. It just naturally gets to the place where I'm like, okay, I very much build left to right. So like I'll come back and add other things in, but I'll build certain things and I'm kind of just moving over from the very left, like a book, like telling a story. Right. And you just know where the ending is. Yeah, that's very cool. And what are you... What kind of equipment do you have that you're doing this with? What are you? How are you producing this? This is my favorite part, because another message that John has been sharing with me from the beginning is like how overly complicated we've gotten with technologies that it just makes it hard for anyone to really connect or keep up. And I never wanted to be in social media beyond my Facebook, which is kind of just like my album of all my baby kids pictures and all that. But I've been shoved into like, no, you need to have your, Instagram, your TikTok. So I'm learning all this stuff, and I'm like, it's amazing what these kids are already in and able to keep up with and function in. And so I've realized a big part of this is the adults needing to stay up with technology in order to stay connected with these kids and actually support them. They are just as much our teachers as we think we are the rule givers to them. We should be learning from our kids right now, like really. And so as I've dove into this more, I am going completely blank. This sometimes happens when I'm going on a tangent and I'm not sure why, because normally they just keep me going. Yeah, we were talking about... Repeat your question. We were talking about the equipment that you use to produce these tracks. Yeah, so that's what I was saying. Everything is so crazy that I started with just my laptop, which when I worked as a designer, I always had 2 monitors, keyboard, an external keyboard, an external mouse, perfectly set up. And now I'm down to just my laptop. I've got all kinds of like other equipment that I've used, like playing around with a synthesizer or whatever. MIDI keyboard, but I'm down to just the computer. And that's the best part about this, is that now I have like all these patterns and I can teach people how to make their own music. And that's a big goal for me, especially working with kids, giving them this outlet where all they need is to pay for one program, literally one program, and they can be their own musician.
That's
and
cool.
You don't need a studio or any of that. You don't even, I don't even use an external microphone. I just know how to level my volume and my voice by singing into my Mac mic. So it's something that people can't say, well, that's really expensive, I can't get into that, because I'm like, no, $10 a month and your time, and you can be a musician.
That's amazing. That's really cool. And I love the connection that you're bringing to younger people, right?
Yeah.
And this is an outlet, and this is a way to connect. And I think for a lot of parents that are listening in, or even grandparents that are listening in, it's a great way to create connection with your son, daughter, grandkids, whatever, that I think is unique and unusual. And there are those of us that believe, and certainly I believe this, that this new generation that are being born, they are a lot more connected than we ever were, and they're a lot more open and probably hear more than we know, right?
I'm very glad that you brought that up, because that is a huge part of this. It's like there's a lot more kids that are going to be diagnosed with autism, ADHD, neurodivergence. There are just more and more. This generation, it's just, we don't understand. And the parents aren't taking the time to dig in and actually get to understand these kids and where their brain is. And the fact that they can actually handle all the social media and be in 20 places at once. They're very connected. And a big part of this is trying to help parents and educate them on the fact that these words are misnomers. We can't be labeling them. We need to learn them and not set them up as like a disability over here or put them in a separate place. And my first student that I've been working with and making music, I have a podcast I did with him that I'm planning on posting later, which I'd love to share with you, because I'm just asking him questions about this and he's giving advice to parents. And there's a big part that I want to do a lot more of that, because I really just feel like there's a lot of people at our age and they're just scared of this sort of thing.
Absolutely.
And so we don't want to shut down that imagination, because all that I've been doing since I've had this awakening is getting back to remembering myself as a kid. I'm finding that inner child, and we have to find our inner child to relate to our kids and actually support them the way that we're supposed to. And if we do that, then this whole next generation is going to build this beautiful, loving earth that is so different from anything we've ever imagined.
That's great. And you are part of that movement, Marcie.
Yeah.
Which is very, very cool.
Yeah. And I've gone through a lot of stuff, even like my kids have distanced, but I've started to understand that they're doing what they need to do right now for me to do what I need to do, and not to take some of these things like personally. When the kids actually know that you're doing okay with understanding yourself and you're getting back to this, it's like,
yeah.
It's a nonverbal understanding too. And John has talked about this next generation being more of the silent generation, that we need less words. And it's going to be thinking about how you use words and how many times we type things and people misunderstand them, or we say things in a certain tone and people read it a different way. But when you can actually connect energetically and kind of use a little bit more of that, I guess, sixth sense, when that's going to be more elevated in these kids, and listen to them and their nonverbal things, then it's like you understand things on a whole different level.
I had, and it's interesting that you say that, I had last week's guest was someone that she's a quantum hypnotherapist.
Okay.
And I went into a session with her, and part of that session was seeing future me, right? Future Rick. And in that vision that I had, I wouldn't call it a vision. I was actually there. I'm in this village. I'm walking in this village, and everybody that I see, I'm connected to telepathically. I don't have to say a word. I can feel their feelings. They feel mine. We're completely connected. You don't even have to speak. You just telepathically are connected. So I feel that is kind of where we're headed. And at some point, right, that's where we're all going to land.
It's weird. Some of this, I have to take it even for my own brain in small doses. And I'm trying to figure out, again, like sometimes how to like articulate some of these things, because I think that could sound really scary to people like that aren't ready for it. Just like my music is scary to people. And I have had people go through and quote all the things in the Bible, trying to prove that what I'm doing is from Satan. I'm like, I'm learning to like try to figure out how to bring this to people so they can see it and see the work and what it's actually doing and how it's helping people, so that they're a little bit less scared. But what you are saying is definitely like already happening. It's already beginning, and you can kind of tap in. John calls it the network. Living or dead, you have this whole world in your brain when you can actually get your mind focused on it. And I know I've had those conversations with his son, very much channeled into him, and my own daughters, specifically my younger one, was very like obvious on some of this nonverbal stuff.
Yeah.
And I did actually confront her one day on it, because I was like, am I just imagining this? And so one day when she was kind of being like, she was going to go back to her dad's house, and I was like, I know we were communicating at your school event the other day. And she's like, well, if you know that, then, and like, it was just a very like short understanding. And so it's really beautiful, but I know it can be scary, because making any changes and letting go of the things we've believed in up to this point, it is scary.
Sure. Absolutely. But again, I think for those of us that are open, for those of us that are searching, seeking, learning, this is all part of the path. And this is either going to resonate with you or it's not. But if it does resonate with you, I encourage you to look at, and I'll have all these links, as I always do. This is going to be uploaded to my YouTube channel. It's going to be on my radio show page. Marcie's going to have a copy of this. She'll be able to share it out there with everybody as well. But I will have all of Marcie's contact info on there for you. I'll have her website on there. That has her SoundCloud connection on there as well. You can go in, you can listen to any number of these tracks and really get a feeling for yourself and what resonates with you, and then pursue accordingly is what I would encourage everybody to do. Marcie, I could go on and on and on for hours, but I've got to somewhat wrap it up here. But yep. I think certainly I would, and I will, once maybe I've got a custom track, I'm going to share that with folks as well, and I'm excited about that, because I'm excited based on what I've heard those other tracks and some of the feelings that I had while I'm listening to those tracks. So, Marcie, thank you so much for being here today.
Definitely.
It was great. It was a blast.
I was just going to say one last thing. On my website, there is a section that says learn. So if you are somebody that's kind of like, I'm not sure where this is coming from, please go check that out. I'm also very approachable. Set up a discovery call. It's free, or send me an email. Would love to answer your questions.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
Really appreciate you having me on too,
Marcie,
Rick.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I will be chatting with you later, I'm sure.
Awesome. Thank
you. All
you.
right. Bye. Well, that was phenomenal. And I wish I would have played more of her tracks, but I encourage you, and again, this is going to be on my show page. The recording of this is going to be on my show page. I'll have that there for you. All of her contact information is going to be in the description box on both my YouTube channel and my KXFM Wake Up Laguna show page, so you can find it there as well. I encourage you to do that. Look into this. To me, it's absolutely mind-blowing what Marcie has done and what she's doing, I think, for the world. I'm really inspired by her path and her journey and what she's doing on a daily basis to really get this out to everyone, and especially the younger generation. I think there's just a great connection there as well. So, as always, I've had a blast with you guys here today. It's been very inspiring for me, as always. I really feel that I'm blessed to be here on this radio show with you here on KXFM every Wednesday morning, and I love this time that we spend together. So until next week, have a great, blessed rest of your week. I love all of you, and I will see you all soon.
Shanti, Shanti, peace. Judah Mama set us free. Every soul now shifting into perfect peace. Breaking down into divinity. Get off the chain. Into perfect getting off the chain gang. Breaking those chains, breaking those chains. Urudia fiorottondo, ivororandi ondaonde ondi shundai. Get off the chain gang, get off the chain gang, get off the chain gang. Breaking those chains, breaking those chains. Om Shanti Shanti, please, sweet Lord Judah, set us free. Every soul now shifting high into perfect peace, into divinity, into perfect peace, into divinity.